Once again, it is time to go over the new products that have come out in the world of FPV since the last time that I did a new product roundup. It's time for the FPV New Product Roundup, August 2024. And I know how YouTube works. We got to start off with a strong product that is going to really catch your interest. So here it is, the HGLRC Rekon Y6. This is advertised as a long-range drone, but set that aside. This is pretty much a pure novelty drone, but I know you love novelty drones, and that's why we're leading off with it. So what exactly is a Y6? A Y6 drone has the motors in a triangular configuration, and you might think, well, then it's like a tricopter. But it isn't like a tricopter, because a tricopter needs to have a servo on the rear to tilt the rear motor to provide yaw authority, and that means it basically flies like crap. Tricopters fly like crap. I know there are people out there who love them, but they just objectively fly worse than like quadcopters. The way that a Y6 solves this problem is by having coaxial motors, and with each motor rotating in an opposite direction. So this top motor will be rotating clockwise and the bottom motor counterclockwise and vice versa. And that means that you can have balanced yaw authority, and by varying the speed of the top and bottom motors, you can steer on the yaw axis, and then by varying the speed of the other motors, you can flip and roll and do everything you need. Now here's why I say this is a pure novelty, because fundamentally a Y6 is going to fly, I'm not going to say worse, but it's going to fly less balanced than a quadcopter. A quadcopter is going to have 4 motors, 2 motors on the pitch axis, 2 motors on the roll axis, 2 motors on the yaw axis. Everything is very balanced. But a Y6 has, well, basically 6 motors on the roll axis, but only 2 motors on the pitch axis. And so it's never going to have the same pitch authority as it does roll authority. And it's going to just fly a little bit weird. It's going to feel different, but it's going to feel different. Well, that's a good thing, right? Who wants to fly the same old damn thing you've been flying forever? Wouldn't you like some novelty in your life? Wouldn't you like to pull this out of your backpack or whatever and have your friends go, what the hell is that? And be all super impressed. And you're like, yeah, I know, I got a Y6. Did you even know that existed? That's, I think, the main reason that you would buy this, for the novelty and not for anything else about the way it flies. So if you're interested in picking one up, this is the HGLRC Rekon Y6, and you can get it with the Walksnail Moonlight, the DJI O3, or analog, depending on your price point, which video system you prefer. I think for somebody who is looking to kind of stretch their boundaries a little bit, try something different, you got the budget for a new quadcopter, but you don't want to buy just another 5-inch, this could be an interesting thing to play with. And there's links in the video description below. Oh yeah, as we go through all these products, and this is probably like a 40-minute long video, there's a lot of products in here. If you want to watch the whole video, more power to you, but there are links in the video description below to all of the products and timestamps. So if you just want to go down there and scroll and look for a chapter marker for a product you're particularly interested in, you can do that. In addition, the links down below are affiliate links, and that means that when you click those links, I get a little commission from the store. It really means a lot if you're going to buy any of these products, or if you're going to buy anything. Just find one of my affiliate links, or you can even bookmark it. Just find one of my affiliate links, use it to go to the store. I get a little commission. It's a great way to help me out. Next up, we've got the Newbeedrone Stingerbee. And this is interesting to me because it is a sub 250 gram, 3-inch quadcopter with a DJI O3 or a Caddx Moonlight on board. And that means that you can fly it and record 4K video on board with pretty good video quality. There's some debate over whether the O3 or the Moonlight is better, but I think everybody agrees that they're both pretty usable, especially if you're not like doing like professional cinematic stuff, and frankly, maybe even if you are. But the way I think of these platforms is these are both just a fun little 3-inch ripper, sub 250 grams, so you don't have to register it as long as you're not doing commercial work, and you can just take it out. Don't worry about your GoPro, just bash it around, have a good time, fly, record, and just really enjoy yourself. There's something about the 3-inch size. Well, first of all, 3 to 3.5 inches is just about the biggest quadcopter you can get under 250 grams and still get pretty good performance and pretty good durability. So I think this is the perfect size for people who are searching for sub 250. And there's something freeing about not having a GoPro on your drone that you constantly have to worry about, oh, am I gonna break it? But you can still bring home some footage that, well, if you do something epic, you'll be able to record it, upload it, share it with your friends, and do whatever you need to do. And the Newbeedrone Stingerbee, stands out to me for a particular reason, and that is that Newbeedrone is a USA-based company. And this is not about patriotism or xenophobia. It's just about the pragmatic thing that there are factors at play in the world that might make it, or maybe are making it, harder to get drones out of China. And if those factors were to continue going in that direction, it would be really good to have something like this that is, at least nominally, well, not exactly made in the USA, but sold in the USA. Since we're doing bind and fly quadcopters, I want to put this one in the list, but frankly, most of you aren't going to buy this. This is the 533 MultiGP Pro-Spec ready-to-fly quadcopter. And I learned about Pro-Spec this week, or last week, when I built a Pro-Spec quadcopter and made a video about it. Pro-Spec is a 7-inch spec racing format. Basically, there are restrictions on the way that you build the quadcopter, the size, the weight, the power, the RPM, etc., to kind of put all the racers on an even footing, and then everybody comes out, and hopefully it's skill that actually determines who wins, rather than who picked the fastest motors or who has the twitchiest reflexes. If you want to know more about Pro-Spec, you should go check out my video where I built one of these. But here's the thing. If you don't want to build one, you can just buy one. 533 is well known for making excellent bind and fly racing drones. $675 sounds like a lot of money. Well, it is a lot of money. But if you compare it to what you'd spend on parts for one of these big 7 inches, it's not as much of a markup as maybe it feels like it would be. And the quality on these things is just insanely good. Like, for example, you see here they put these MR30 connectors in here. I didn't do that. And that means that if you break an arm or damage a motor, you'll be able to swap it without having to rip the whole thing apart. It's just really, really well put together, really well built. And if you're interested in getting into this racing format, then it's an easy way to get into it, just trading a little bit of money for time. Well, some people are willing to do that. There's another piece of news from 533 this month, and it is the Zero Compromise Ludicrous Racing System, a frame for every scenario. What that means is that there is a single frame that lets you swap between the Ludicrous monobody, the deep air boomerang setup, or a Light Switch Ultra based on your race day needs. In other words, the flight stack is mounted to the top plate, and you can simply swap that flight stack between bottom plates, ESC motors, etc., without having to take the whole frame apart and rebuild the whole thing. Let me show you. You can see here that the top plate of the frame has been drilled with 20mm mounting holes. If you combine that with MR30 connectors on the ESC, you can simply take that top plate off and unplug the motors. And did the camera and video transmitter get left behind? I'm not 100% sure I actually see the advantage here. Like, you still need to have motors and a video transmitter and a camera. I guess in theory, you could undo the standoffs. Okay, you could undo the standoffs, and then the video transmitter and the camera come with the top plate, and then you've only got the you unplug the ESC, unplug the motors, and then you've got the bottom plate and the motors, and I don't know. That's kind of cool. Nobody's forcing you to do it, I guess. At least someone's innovating in the world of FPV at all. Okay, fine. 533, I'll give you that. The other thing that's interesting about this frame is this. Look at this. Does that look like carbon fiber? Does that look like carbon fiber to you? It is, but it's not. What we've got here is a sandwich of carbon fiber on the outside and something on the inside. And when I first saw this, I thought, we've tried foam-filled carbon fiber laminate before. The idea was that you could save weight by having carbon fiber sandwiched with this kind of foam, and the result was that it broke super easy and wasn't worth it. And so when I first saw this, I thought, is this just more of the same? But 533 swears this is not just more of the same. They swear that this stuff is stiffer and, if not stronger than regular carbon fiber, strong enough for someone who wants to save even just a little bit more weight on their racing drones. This is not going to be something that like the average pilot's going to care about, but for a pilot that absolutely wants the most performance at the very, very top of the sort of racing field, this is something that may give a small advantage. I don't know. It's not for me. I'm nowhere near the top of the racing field. There's one more frame I want to take a look at this month, and that is the ERA 5-inch frame kit from itsfpv.de. And at first glance, this frame is going to look pretty familiar to you. I actually got some pushback because I noted in a live stream that it has a lot of similarities to the Impulse RC Apex. And I stand by that. I'm not accusing anybody of cloning or copying. I don't do that. But there's some similarities here, you got to admit. Nothing wrong with that. What makes this really unique, though, is this front end. So the front end is actually, let's get a good picture on it. This front end is not 3D printed. It is injection molded nylon, and they claim that this is an incredibly tough and resilient polymer of injection molded nylon that significantly increases the durability and survivability of the frame. If you think about it, a lot of frame impacts are face first into the camera. This nylon front end isn't going to help you if you hit a motor on the concrete, if you break a motor bell or you break an arm. But I mean, these are 6mm arms, so they're going to be pretty durable. You would expect them to be. But the idea is that this front end is going to help you in that frontal crash, help you protect your delicate camera, especially if it's the DJI O3, and just generally increase the survivability of your frame. It's even got a kind of innovative mount for the GoPro if you decide to use the GoPro, the little clips on the GoPro instead of a 3D printed mount. It fits down in and it's molded in this screw right here to hold your GoPro securely. The downside of this frame kit, and the reason why I haven't been more excited to review it, is that it costs $113. That's a huge amount of money for a frame. Like, things have gotten more expensive, but you can get good frames in the $60 to $70 range, which is nearly half the price of that. Like, the Impulse RC Apex is close to $100, and if you get any of the accessories, it goes up even more than that. But it comes with, I think it's a 2-year warranty with 1 replacement under warranty. So you could explode that whole frame and get a whole nother one, and that's going to bring your price per frame down to like $50. The ERA, I can't find any evidence that it has that. And so you're going to be paying $113 for one frame, and that's a lot to ask for a lot of people. I don't even know, even if we stipulate that this is the best frame, like they've done all this crazy engineering and they've made it amazing, is it that much better than a good like $70, $65 frame, or even an $80 frame? Well, that's a question for you to decide as the customer. But I will give them this. They are doing anything at all innovative. And frankly, when I look at frames, that's one of the things I ask. Just do anything innovative instead of just cloning some existing frame or just recycling a bunch of ideas that everybody has seen already. And I give them that. This nylon front end is very clever. Well, let's move on from frames and bind and flies to flight controllers and ESCs. And the flight controller that I think is making the biggest splash this month is the Riot Brave F7 flight controller. And if you look at this and you think, well, it looks like an okay flight controller, there's nothing particularly innovative about that. In some ways, you're right. I mean, it's a solid flight controller. I like the fact that it has both plugs and solder pads for every connection. So whether you're a plug person or a solder person, you have your choice. I like that the layout is very intuitive. The solder pads for each of the plugs are laid out right next to the plug, so there's no confusion about what's what. If we look on the underside, everything is neatly labeled. But at its heart, it's like a pretty standard flight controller, right? There's nothing like super innovative about it. What makes this super innovative? Well, first of all, the price is $50. That's a great price for a flight controller these days. You can find a few flight controllers that are cheaper, but not very many. So $50, very, very reasonable. But this is made in the USA. And when I saw the price and I saw that it was made in the USA, I thought, that's impossible. I'll just be honest with you. I thought that's impossible. Someone, and I don't think that anybody would out and out lie, but I did think maybe somebody is like stretching the definition of made in the USA in some way, that it's technically true, but in practically speaking, it's not. And I've done some digging, and as far as I can tell, it seems to be true. That they are literally, they're getting the PCBs, they're getting all the components, and they are assembling these in the USA, which is the sort of standard definition for a piece of electronics to be made in the USA. And some people will argue, well, the individual components aren't made in the USA. And I would say, yeah, but no one's doing that. Those components just aren't available. So that's just not a really reasonable bar to have. I actually recently found out that this flight controller was added to the United States Blue UAS list, which basically means it's approved for sale to the government. And that is going to lead some people in my comments to point out that Rotor Riot and Rotor Riot's parent company, Unusual Machines, is explicitly trying to sell to the military with the intent of being used potentially even for lethal strike drones, which created a big kerfuffle when it first came out and the internet sort of blew up. And we're not going to like this. That's not what this video is for. I just want to acknowledge, I don't want to seem like I'm avoiding mentioning that issue. I'll acknowledge it, but you feel how you feel about it, and you can go argue about it in the comments if you want to. On the other hand, if you don't care about that issue and you're looking for, or maybe you actively support that issue, God forbid, support the US government. Okay, I know it's not popular, but some people do. And you want to buy a flight controller for $50. There you go. What ESC does this go with? Does it have a standard pinout for the ESC that I can just buy an ESC and plug it in? Presumably, they're going to make an ESC to go with it. Like, I don't see why they wouldn't. So maybe you'll have to repin your plug until that day comes. So that kind of sucks. Next up, we've got the Lumenier Lux HD all-in-one flight controller with G4 processor. Now, this is an all-in-one flight controller, so it's going to be used more for things like 3-inch toothpicks and Cinewhoops and smaller drones. If we look closer, we can also see that it has an AM32 ESC, not BL-Heli-32. And that actually is going to be a big deal because, as we learned like a month ago, BL-Heli-32 is shutting down. Existing BL-Heli-32 ESCs will keep working, but you cannot flash new firmware to BL-Heli-32 ESCs, and that's leaving some people to say, well, I don't want them then. AM32 is an open source firmware that is the sort of presumed replacement for BL-Heli-32, and it's nice to see manufacturers starting to ship ESCs with that firmware pre-installed, because flashing it is a pain in the ass if you don't have it pre-installed. Once it's pre-installed, it's just plug into USB and flash. It's super easy. The other cool thing about this ESC is that it can be ordered in a solderless version, which means it comes with an XT30 plug pre-soldered, and it's going to save some people the hassle and potentially the damage of having to solder it on. It has plugs for the motors, but a lot of people think you get better performance by direct soldering the motors and would avoid them. Nevertheless, you could also plug in the motors, and that's nice. You're still going to have to solder up like the receiver and stuff, but you could save yourself a little bit of soldering. I've actually only just noticed that the standard version doesn't have plugs at all for the motors, and so you don't even have the option there. The big question on an all-in-one flight controller like this is it going to be durable? You cram all these electronics onto a board in a very small space. It's very easy to find some with, let's say, I'm not going to say defects, but I'm going to say some of them blow up a lot easier than others, and we don't know at this point, because this is a new product, whether this is going to be super bulletproof reliable or going to turn out to have QC issues. If you're feeling brave, and if this ticks the boxes for you, you could pick it up, or maybe you want to sit and wait and put this in your back pocket and then find out, look on Reddit and Facebook and see if people are going, oh, it blew up. And if like in 2 months they're not, then maybe we'll decide that it's sort of passed the test. Here's another all-in-one flight controller for your Cinewhoop or toothpick build. This is the Skystars Jupiter AIO, and we're just calling this out because it's just good to see new products in this category for people to use. This one has an MPU 6000 gyro, which is getting harder and harder to find, but many people believe it is the best gyro for multi-rotors. It also has BL-Heli-S firmware instead of BL-Heli-32 or AM32. That means it's an 8-bit ESC, and well, 8 is less than 16, so you might think, oh, it's worse, but BL-Heli-S ESCs have fine performance. You can flash firmware to it called BlueJay, and then they basically perform as good, or in some cases better, than their BL-Heli-32 counterparts. All the 8-bit means is that in order to change some settings, you have to flash new firmware, whereas with BL-Heli-32, you just go in and you make a configuration change without flashing. That's the main thing that it means. So BL-Heli-S, no big deal there, no downside. What do we got? We got not a lot of solder pads exposed, tell you that. I guess it's good that we got this big heat sink. Maybe it's going to help protect the electronics and help dissipate heat. I'm not loving that it's a USB micro. Kind of wish it was USB-C in this day and age, but okay. And the solder pads are going to be a humongous pain in the ass to solder up. Geez, look how tight they put them on here. I mean, okay, just, man up, right? Learn how to solder, I guess. The price is pretty good. $70 for an all-in-one. It's not a bad price. Yeah. Big question as always, is it reliable? And the answer is we don't know, but eventually you got to take a chance on something, right? We're going to take a look at 2 new motors this month, and what these motors have in common is their KV. What do you notice about these motors' KV? This is the T-Motor Velox 2207 in 1500 kV, and this is the AOSRC Supernova 2207 in 1570 kV. And if you're thinking that's an awfully low kV, don't 6S motors usually come in between, let's say, 1700 and 1900 kV? You're right. These motors aren't intended for 6S though. They're intended for 8S. See, ADES can actually get even more performance out of a 5-inch quadcopter. I didn't believe it until I built one and was shocked at just what a freaking teleportation machine this thing was. You touch the throttle and just blah, and they had so much authority, and it was so awesomely fun to fly. And you might think, well, why aren't you just running ADES on everything? And if you want to know more about that, I'm going to put a link in the video description to my flight review of this ADES quadcopter. As well, if you want to build one, you can follow along with me and build it. But that's not the point. The point is that in order to get the best performance out of an ADES build, you need a motor in the range of about 1500 or 1600 kV, and there haven't been very many of those until now. It's really fantastic that for budget-oriented pilots, there is a $15 1500 kV motor. $15. T-Motor Velox, solid budget motor, not the best, great price, absolutely worth the price. Frankly, if I was building my own quadcopter, I 100% would spend $15 on the Velox. I would not spend almost $30 on the Supernova, despite the fact that the Supernova is like objectively a better motor. The Supernova is more efficient, makes more power. It's just more in every way because Chris Rosser has figured out clever engineering ways to optimize the motor without adding. Basically, it is a bigger motor that weighs as much as a smaller motor. So you get bigger motor performance without the downside of additional weight, but you pay for that. You pay for that. If you want the absolute best, go for the AOSRC Supernova. If you're trying to just be a normal person on a budget, go for the T-Motor Velox. But either way, if you decide to build an ADES build, it's nice that there are more motors out there in the kV range that you need. If you decide to do an ADES build, you're going to need a flight controller and ESC that support ADES. And when I did my ADES build, I used an ESC that supported ADES, obviously, otherwise it would have fried. But my flight controller didn't support ADES, and that means I needed a dedicated voltage regulator. And it turned out that was more of a hassle than I thought. Number one, it made the wiring more complicated. And number two, a voltage regulator that can take up to like 40 volts or something, because you want a little headroom on it, it turned out it was kind of expensive. It was like $20, $25, I think. And that's a lot of money on a $200 or $250 build. Instead, what I should have done was buy a flight controller like this. This is the DYS F7 2 to 8S 30x30 stack. And that means that you can plug it directly into 8S voltage and it will just handle it. It has the voltage regulators built in. Let's see what we got here. An AM32 ESC. That's fine. That's good. We talked about that previously. The flight controller. Oh, can I have a picture of just the flight controller? No, apparently not. The flight controller has some labels on the top, not all the labels on the top. It's a little annoying to figure out which pad is which. Got plugs on the bottom. If you're a plug person, that's fine. USB-C, it's fine. What's our voltage regulator situation? You need voltage regulators if you're going to run 8S because most of your accessories will only go up to 6S. 12 volt 3 amps, that's fine. 5 volt 3 amps, also fine. BMP 280 barometer, that's okay. Yeah, it looks pretty solid, like a pretty standard solid flight controller and can take 8S. We got to compare it though, because the gold standard for me is the Foxeer Reaper 8S ESC and flight controller. And yeah, okay, yeah, it's the gold standard, but the Foxeer Reaper, the ESC alone, $85, cost as much as this stack of flight controller and ESC. So again, the Reaper is just one of the best ESCs you can buy today in terms of reliability, but it costs a lot of money. If you're trying to save money, maybe the DYS is more up here. The DYS and the Velox versus the AOS Supernova and the Reaper, and the guy who has more money versus the guy who's got to actually earn his money and spend it wisely. Well, speaking of spending your money wisely, here is the DYS F722 flight controller. Now, this is not an 8S capable flight controller, so this is different than what we've been talking about up till now, but it is $40 for a F722 flight controller. Like, I'll forgive a lot of sins at that price point, and these days it's harder and harder to find flight controllers at this price point. So I'm telling you, it exists. At this price point, on some level, you've always got to wonder, is it going to suck? Is it going to die on me? I don't know. But at this price point, a lot of people are willing to take a punt, and that's why I'm telling you that it exists. I didn't know where to fit this in, so I'm just sticking it in here with the other flight controllers. This is a new flight control stack from who? Sequre. Who's Sequre? Sequre is the maker of the, oh my God, it's the Sequre soldering irons. They make soldering irons. Little portable soldering irons similar to the TS100, but not the TS100 because Sequre is a different company. They make soldering irons, but apparently, now they make drones. I wonder why this company suddenly started deciding to make 10-inch racing drones with 3-kilogram load capacity. What an odd way to advertise this drone. And here's a 8-inch with 2 kilograms load capacity. How strange that this random company that used to just make soldering irons and electronics suddenly started making 8-inch and 10-inch drones. How odd that they didn't just make a 5-inch hobby drone, but an 8-inch or 10-inch. What a strange choice that they advertise strong anti-interference. Interesting. I can't imagine why they've done that. Oh well, I guess that doesn't matter. They're also making a flight controller at ESC, and holy crap, the specs are impressive. 8S capable, yay. 70 amp ESC, 128K PWM, MPU 6000, the best gyro, H743 processor. This is the premium creme de la creme, and boy howdy, you pay for it $165 for the stack, and that's for a company. I mean, oh God, is it 20 millimeter mounting? Why? Okay, it's also got 30 millimeter mounting and it hangs over, so I guess take your pick. No, the ESC only has 20 millimeter mounting, but it also hangs over. So it's not a 20 millimeter ESC, is it? It can't be. It has to be using like big FETs, right? I don't know. I have no idea what I'm looking at here. Well, it's asking a lot to spend $165 on a stack from a completely, I guess they're not an unproven company. They make electronics, but they've never made a flight controller in ESC before. I don't know. Maybe this is just a novelty that I'm like, hey, Sequre has started making flight controllers in ESCs. I don't know if anybody should actually like buy this. It's so expensive. There are other flight controllers and ESCs you could buy for the same price that are more proven. Next up, we've got motors from a relatively new manufacturer, VCI Hobby. I actually did a build with some VCI Hobby motors and was super impressed with them. As well, I've kept my ear to the ground and I'm aware of some drone programs that are using VCI Hobby motors with good effect. They like good durability, good performance. I mean, like nobody's putting them on a bench. Actually, I think Chris Rosser has tested some of them on the bench. And I don't know how they did. I don't think they were at the top of the list. They were kind of in the middle of the pack. That's not the point. The point is that these motors are pretty reasonably priced. Like, for example, here is the VCI Hobby Spark 2208 motor. So this is going to be a little bit beefy for a 5-inch prop, really ideal for a 6-inch prop, or fine for a 5-inch prop as well, but just a little bigger probably than you optimally need. And it's only $21, which is a pretty reasonable price, especially for a motor of this quality. These are really high quality motors in terms of the manufacturing, the construction, and so forth. Like you can see here, we've got nice, neat winds, single strand winds, nice. Doesn't look like a Unibel. That's a shame. Kind of like it to be a Unibel at this price. Well, it's only $21. Shut up. What's my problem? It's also nice to see that they are making this, the VCI Hobby 2808 motor, and this VCI Hobby Tank 2808 Street League motor. Now this is, either of these motors I think could be used for Street League because they're both 2808 in size, but this Tank motor has additional like durability put on it. It has additional shielding and so forth for increased durability. A price of $25 for both. Are they the same motor? Why is one called the Tank 2808? I thought I knew. Now I think I don't know. They look identical. This is just a listing thing. Anyway, if you're trying to buy a Street League motor, this should certainly be in contention. Let's talk about video transmitters. And the video transmitter of the month is the TBS Unify Pro 32 DP. DP means double the penetration of previous models because it has higher output power. And that's all it means, you pervs. Okay, TBS knew what they were doing when they named this. They always have saucy little names for their stuff. This is basically an update of the TBS Unify Pro 32, which has always been one of the best video transmitters you can buy in terms of build quality and performance, reliability, and so forth. Not so much in terms of price, but you get the best, you pay for the best. This one comes in at $50 and it is rated at 25 to 400 milliwatts. That's a lie. American manufacturers don't want to get in trouble with the FCC. If we go to the Team Black Sheep website, we can see that the maximum output power is actually 3 watts. You got to unlock it, do all the things that you normally have to do. It goes up to 3 freaking watts. And what makes this so interesting is that it doesn't have a heatsink or fan like most other high-power VTXs do. Now, you can actually buy it with a heatsink. TBS is like, we don't think you need a heatsink, but if you want a heatsink, fine, the customer is always right. But TBS's argument is that these silly little fans, they don't really do anything when you're flying anyway. The air is just blowing all over, right? The fan is really only useful when you're not flying and, well, just be flying all the time and save yourself the weight and the size of the fan. At least TBS has given you the option. The other thing that stands out about the Unify Pro 32 DP is that it is a wideband video transmitter. It goes down to 4990 megahertz and up to 6030 megahertz. And if you're thinking, well, that's not legal, you're right. That's not legal. You're only supposed to use the 5.8 gigahertz band. But there are times in which people make exceptions or break the rules, and you would have the option of doing that if you decided to. In fact, I'm pretty sure that the 5.3 gigahertz low band actually was recently made legal under some conditions. And that's kind of cool because, like, if you're ever at like an FPV event like Rotor Riot Rampage and there's just a million people in the air and they're all knocking you out of the air, if you can go to low band, nobody else is going to be on low band and you'll just have the whole channel to yourself. And that's kind of cool. Don't go down to 4.9 gigahertz though. That's not legal. Stop winking. They shouldn't do it. It's really going to cause problems. Stop winking. They're going to think you mean for them to do it. Don't do it. No winking. Another video transmitter that's making waves this month is the Walksnail Avatar GT. This is a 2-watt Walksnail Avatar VTX. And at first you might think, well, 2 watts, the more power equals gooder, right? In fact, the ability to go to higher output powers was one of the limitations of the previous VTXs. They could go up to 1200 milliwatts, but you didn't actually get better range and penetration. The signal just got noisier and worser. And most people, at least as far as I know, are running the standard 700 milliwatt max power for that reason. This is a tough one. I actually have one of these. I haven't tested it yet. I haven't got it in a build. I've been working around to it. This is a tough one because on the one hand, more power, like, that's good. More power, more penetration, more range, right? But does that actually bear out in real life? In this video, Madstech does a technical deep dive review of the Avatar GT, and the thumbnail says 2 watts, but with problems. However, if we go to the comments, we can see this person says, it has exactly the same range as the DJI O3, which is actually an improvement. That's a good thing. So I think this product has some promise, but it requires a little bit more testing. Walksnail is known for releasing products that like have a lot of promise, but then the implementation is kind of messed up right out the gate. And then after a little bit of time, they sort of get their shit together and they straighten it out. And if they're able to do that with the Avatar GT, I think there's a lot of promise here. The size is a little bit bigger. It's not that much bigger than the O3 though, right? If you can get O3-like range out of a Walksnail system, that's a big freaking deal, and it's going to help level the playing field for Walksnail. Here's a product that I declined to review. Not because I think there's anything wrong with the product, just that it's just a cosmetic rebadge of an existing product. But I do think you're going to want to know it's there. And the product is the Radiomaster Boxer Crush. The Boxer Crush is just a Radiomaster Boxer, which I've reviewed previously and which I actually use as my daily driver, except it's available in cool colors. Not on this website because they're out of stock and I can't even click on them to see them. Let's see if I can find it on Radiomaster's website. It comes in mint, iceberg blue, lemon yellow, shut up with your pop-up, cherry red. Oh, that's kind of nice. Frost white, hot pink. That's the one I picked. And iron gray. So if you like colors, and heck, we all like colors, you can pick one there. It comes with Express LRS internal and the AGO1 gimbals as standard. So at a price of $189, it's not the cheapest Boxer you can buy, but if we compare it, Boxer is $139 without the AGO1 gimbals, and the Boxer Max is $259 with AGO1 gimbals and CNC metal pieces. A Crush seems to kind of come in the middle there. We've got the AGO1 gimbals, but we've got the plastic buttons and a colored shell, price of $189. This is fine. I actually have one. I said, if you send me, I'm not going to review it, but if you send me one, I'll just use it because I like color. And they did. And it's going to be my daily driver. But the weakness of this radio is the small screen. And that brings us to the next radio in our list, the Jumper T15. Now, first glance, well, first of all, it comes in colors. Okay, cool, lilac colors. The Jumper T15 has a very similar form factor to the Radiomaster Boxer. It is from a different manufacturer, and there are people out there who are just Radiomaster diehards. They feel like they got burned by Jumper's quality control in the past, and they're never going back. I don't know. I think Jumper's quality control is still not quite at the level of Radiomaster's, but I think it has gotten to the point. I know enough people who use the Jumper as their daily driver, people whose opinion I respect, and I think that they're probably worth consideration. The thing that makes the T15 so interesting is that it's basically a form factor of a Boxer, but with a big color screen. So it's not the touch screen of the TX16S. Is it a touchscreen? I don't think it's a touchscreen. Is it a touchscreen? It is a touchscreen. Holy shit, it's a touchscreen. So it's basically, okay, I thought I knew, but I didn't know. Good thing I checked. It's basically the best of both worlds. You get the big color touchscreen of the TX16S in a Boxer-sized form factor, and like, that's damn tempting. That is damn tempting. You can't even get it in pink. That's not as good a color. I want hot pink, please. Here's the thing. It was $159. That's even more tempting. If I could get a Radiomaster Boxer with AGO1 gimbals with this screen, that would be my pick. I like the AGO1 gimbals a lot. They're not a must-have, but I've come to expect them. I appreciate them, and I do like them. I like the folding antenna on the T15 too. I've busted my antenna on my Boxer more than once and wished that you could do like a folding antenna like Jumper does. But Radiomaster wants you'd have a detachable antenna, so you could put custom antennas on, which that one the Jumper doesn't let you have. I bet that in the next 6 months, Radiomaster releases a version of the Boxer with a color touchscreen like this. Like, it's too obvious. Jumper has beaten them to the punch here, and I think this thing is going to sell a lot. I might hold out for the Boxer version just because I love the AGO1 gimbals more than I like the Jumper gimbals, but I think I've just gotten to be a little bit of a snob about it. Oh my God, I used to review controllers and say I'm not a gimbal snob, and now I am a gimbal snob. Not because I think the gimbals make me fly better, not because I really even feel like maybe I could tell the difference in a blind test. I just like how heavy and solid they are, and what's happened to me? Anyway, if you are not a gimbal snob like me, the Jumper T15 looks like a pretty good freaking deal and a great package. Yeah, I have one for review. I'm going to be doing a full review of it. I just haven't done it yet. What about goggles? You can't FPV without goggles, and frankly, there aren't as many new goggles coming out as there used to be. In fact, I wouldn't blame you if you missed this one. This is the Fat Shark Dominator HDO Plus FPV goggles. And when you look at them, you're going to go, what the frick? This is the same frickin' FPV goggle that Fat Shark has released for the last 7 frickin' years. And you're frickin' right. It is. Fat Shark, what are you doing? This is like that one band from the 70s who had a hit song and then just spent the rest of their career going around playing that song. And I guess that's a fine way to make a career. It's a good song and you're making people happy, but at some point you go, are you going to write any more songs, Fat Shark? And apparently the answer is no. The Fat Shark Dominator HDO Plus is just another Fat Shark goggle. The only thing that's different about it is that it has 1920 by 1080 screen. So it's the same, presumably, the same 1920 by 1080 OLED screen that is in the Walksnail goggles, that's in the HD0 goggles. They've just updated the screen. It has a larger field of view. It has like a 50-degree field of view. But in my guess is that that's because they took the 1280 by 960 screen and the exact same optics, and then they just went to a 1920 by 1080 screen, and so now it's a wider screen, so it has a larger field of view. I don't actually think that's a good thing. 50-degree field of view on the optics like this is going to result in blurry edges that people can't see the edges of. I probably am not going to, somebody asked, when are you going to review these goggles? And I was like, what do you mean? What's to review? It's the same freaking thing. Just second verse, same as the first. I would bet that these are going to have blurry edges and people are going to have trouble keeping the whole screen in view because they didn't design the optics for the 1920 by 1080 screen. They just took their existing goggles and they slapped new screens in it. I don't know. This is all pure conjecture. So if you want to go watch somebody who actually put in the work to review it, go ahead. But I'm just not that excited about these goggles. I mean, okay, $500 for what is an adequate analog goggle, unless the field of view screws you over. I mean, SkyZone Sky 040 Pro. Price? $500. No. No, don't even think about it. Don't even think about it because this doesn't even come with a module. You got to buy a rapid fire or a fusion module. That's going to be another $100+. Don't even think about it. Don't buy these goggles. Buy the SkyZone Sky04X Pro for $500. It's a great goggle. It's got a fine module. You can buy an aftermarket module if you want to. You're going to be ahead. This is a much better goggle. Optics are solid. Screens are solid. Interface has been updated in the last 7 years. Good DVR. Like Fat Shark, try harder. Try harder, Fat Shark. It's still got the MJPEG DVR from the frickin' 2019. Why? It's like all the frickin' engineering know-how left when Orca, when Immersion RC went and worked for Orca, and they just don't know how to make a DVR anymore, and they're just fucking churning out. I don't know. I just get the molds and put more plastic in it. I guess we'll change the screen. Like, what are you doing? See ya, 0.49 inch. Does it do 100? Does it do 100 frame per second input on the HDMI? Can you use it with HD0 90 FPS mode? I don't know. Doesn't say. Like, that's the whole, like, that, you would want that, right? HDMI input, 16:9. What resolution? Does it take 1080p input? Doesn't say. It's not even trying. JPEG compression, 6 megabit per second AVI. Get out of here. Get out of here. Jesus, Fat Shark. Someone at Fat Shark is mad at me right now. I was writing an angry letter. Do not send this man any product ever again. We got another new set of goggles, this time for the Walksnail Avatar system. This is the Walksnail Avatar HD Goggles L, or Goggles Lite. The L stands for Lite. What makes this so cool is that it is a $200 set of FPV goggles for a digital FPV system. And you can actually see them on the table behind me. I am working on a review of them as well. But the short version is, if you're interested in getting into digital FPV at a semi-reasonable price point, these goggles are worth a look. They're okay. They're box goggles. So they're not the best. But as box goggles go, a lot of the times manufacturers are just like, I don't know, it's a box goggle. Who gives a crap? That person's poor anyway. Screw them. And Walksnail haven't done that. They put a cool light bar on the front. I don't know. It shows they're trying. The build quality is pretty solid. It's even got a head tracker built in that you can use with the Caddx gimbal. Like, they haven't cut any corners here. They've just said, let's take and make a really good box goggle that works with the Walksnail system and sell it at a reasonable price. If you're going to get a better experience if you buy the Goggles X. It's going to be better, but it's going to cost you like $250 more. So it's just like up to you. We got just a couple more items before we finish up this month. Little oddball items that I didn't quite know where to put, but I thought you'd want to know about. The first one is this. This is the FPV Cartel display rack. And the idea here is, if you have a bunch of drones and you want to be able to display them on the wall in a neat and professional looking way, you might be willing to spend a little bit of money on this. And you can see, like, it's not cheap. It's made of metal. It's like solidly made. Like, they're not screwing around here. I think it's even welded, right? Like, they're not screwing around here, but it is like $95 for a display rack that holds 5 drones on the wall. Like, if I was setting up a retail store, you know, or like a professional looking display, maybe. But just to like put my drones on the wall, I just use 3M command hooks and rubber bands. And that's what held my drones on the wall for years. Cost you like $20 for a set of, I don't know, a lot. Nevertheless, if you're the kind of person who thinks this is going to be just what your shop needs, now you know it exists and now you know where to go get it. Oh boy, RemoteID. No one wants to talk about RemoteID. And if you're a kind of person who wants to pretend RemoteID doesn't exist, then just, you know, cover your ears and go la 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 for 30 seconds. This is the Ruko R111 FAA compliant RemoteID module. I want to tell you, first of all, I have verified that this does in fact have a declaration of compliance from the FAA. This is a legit RemoteID module. It will meet the legal requirements. And what makes it stand out is that it's only $40. It's $40. That's like half the price of many other RemoteID modules you can get. It's completely self-contained. There's no external antennas or anything. The size is not the smallest ever, but it's pretty freaking small. You've got an internal battery, no wiring, no nothing. Just stick it on your drone somewhere, boom, and away you go. You're remote IDing. And there are going to be a lot of people, I think, for whom this is like the right solution compared to all the other stuff that's out there. I've got one. I'm going to be playing with it. I want you to know it exists, and now you do. Last up this month, we've got, holy cow, what is this thing? Is it a screen? Yes, sort of, but it's more than a screen. Because you wouldn't pay $600 for a little, was it 5-inch, 7-inch screen? You wouldn't pay, it's a 7-inch. You wouldn't pay $600 for a 7-inch LCD screen, not even a really good one. Well, maybe a really good one. But this is more than a screen, because this is the Cosmostreamer Ultra Edition. And in case you don't know, Cosmostreamer is an open source project that lets you get video out from any DJI goggle. The DJI Goggles 2, the DJI Integra, even the DJI Goggles 3, as far as I know. I'm pretty sure the answer is yes. So if you're looking for external display of the feed from your DJI goggles, this is one of the best ways to get it. Now, you don't need to spend $600 on the Cosmostreamer Ultra Edition. You can just get a Raspberry Pi. I've got a tutorial, actually. I'll link it in the video description below. You can make your own, and it just outputs HDMI to whatever you want, whether that's a screen or a capture device or whatever. But the advantage of the Cosmostreamer Ultra is that it's got all that built in. So especially for professionals who need to be able to easily display their feed to a customer, or for people who want to be able to let people spectate, Cosmostreamer Ultra is everything Cosmostreamer is. The ability to rebroadcast via Wi-Fi, the ability it can do so much with the signal, but at its heart, the most basic thing it does is convince the goggles to give you a feed and display it on a screen. And this is a really nice package that lets you sort of do that all in one. You can actually build this yourself. This is an open source project. You could just build one, but by the time you did, you might just wish you'd bought it. And if you're interested in buying it, there's a link in the video description below. And as a reminder, that is an affiliate link. And the commission I get on affiliate links is not very big, but when you buy a $600 Cosmostreamer, it actually is a fair amount of money. So it means a lot to me when you click those affiliate links. Head to the video description below, find a link to your favorite store, click that link, buy whatever you want. And as long as you click that link first, I get a commission. That's going to wrap up this month's new product roundup. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you for sticking along with me, and I will see you in the next one.